Hey there, listener. Zach here. We are not tackling the topic of playing to your outs today. That is being bumped to another time later to be determined. But today, I am so excited to dive into this interview with Roseville Vault Tour winner June, who piloted her deck Becky to victory at said Vault Tour. Before we get going, there's some critical moments from June's play at Roseville that will be linked in the description from the Tabletop Royale stream on their YouTube there. Some really amazing stuff that's going to give you some more context for some of the moves we talk about that June's deck Becky can do. And of course, in winning Vault Tour Roseville, June won an invite to the World Championships, which she will be attending. Now, if you are a competitive strategic thinker, you might think, well, the element of surprise is always good at these things. So if June is planning on playing Becky, why would June talk about Becky at length on a podcast just 2.5 months before Worlds? Well, I'm going to read a quick quote from June that in talking with June ahead, checking June's comfort level with talking about Becky ahead of the World Championship, June said this: "Honestly, I would rather people start looking at their decks like I look at Becky and push the state of the game forward than win Worlds. So let's do it." That is the kind of KeyForge player that June is, and I'll just tell you now, a little spoiler, that's an indicator that you're going to get a whole lot from us diving deep into kind of a deck tech on Becky, June's deck, and then we dive a lot into what lessons June has taken from practicing Becky and getting better, and how you and me can apply that to our own game plan. Let's get sweaty.
Welcome to KeyForge Public Radio with your host, Zach Armstrong.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to KeyForge Public Radio. I am your host, Zach Armstrong. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember to subscribe on your listening platform that you're on if you haven't already, because if you weren't subscribed, you weren't going to see this awesome episode when it dropped, because today we have a very special guest. Our guest today won Vault Tour Roseville just a few short weeks ago. This is June, pronouns she, her, known online as Future Self, and June won Vault Tour Roseville with her deck Becky, Axel, Jintroflow, known as Becky for short. And if you do a lot of listening to Help from Future Self, podcast run by my dear friends Blake and Sydney, June guested there recently to talk about her experience at Vault Tour Roseville, and consider that a prequel to this episode, and cue it up if you haven't already, because we're going to talk about June and Becky and this deck and pilot build my case that KeyForge is a better Yu-Gi-Oh card game than Yu-Gi-Oh. Welcome to the show, June.
Hi, Zach. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to talk about Becky, and your episode over on Help from Future Self with Blake and Sydney was lovely. And I immediately said, okay, well, now I now I need to have June on over here to talk even more about Becky. So I appreciate your willingness to jump on and talk about this awesome deck and your experience with it.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a great idea. My episode of Help from Future Self was like fun and amazing, but also like sprawling. And we talked about everything under the sun. It was great.
Oh, yes. It's very good. Very good episode. So Becky is the deck you've just won a Vault Tour with, which is really exciting. So we're going to introduce the listeners to Becky. Becky is a mass mutation deck, Shadows, Logos, and Star Alliance. And June, what are some of the first things our listeners might notice looking at Becky's deck list?
The first thing I always get is people are like, "Oh, triple Cronus, nice."
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're looking on like decks of KeyForge of the Master Vault, you'll see that one of those Cronus has 2 draw pips on it, which is a huge boon, just like instant payoff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Means you always have those draws when you need them. Other things you'll notice are that other people notice the borrow tends to sort of like mess with a lot of game plans, especially once you start accelerating a deck so that you're playing the cards multiple times. Having one borrow means that like suddenly their entire artifact game plan is at risk.
Right, because you keep repeating that card.
Yeah.
for anybody who might have joined since Mass Mutation, Cronus is a 3-power mutant, and it enhances 2 drop hips into the deck. I'm sure you've seen those in Winds of Exchange. And the text on it, pretty simple, but very powerful. It says, after you resolve a draw card bonus icon, you may archive a card. And so having a draw card bonus icon or multiple land on Cronus itself is pretty huge, because you're playing Cronus. That passive text is in effect already, and so you get to draw and then archive after you resolve that bonus icon. So having 3 Cronus in the deck, 1 that's already enhanced, and then a bunch of other draw enhancements in the deck, means you're going to be archiving a lot with Becky.
Mm-hmm. And Borrow is another card from Mass Mutation's Shadows action. Allows you to steal an artifact and makes it a Shadows artifact. So since you're stealing a ready artifact, usually it's ready and in the house you're in, so you tend to be able to use them too. It's highly impactful. I'd say the last. Oh, yeah.
That's just. I was just gonna. Borrow is just so strong. There's an old Coda card called Snecklifter that was like a little more balanced, because it said steal an enemy artifact. If it doesn't belong to one of the 3 houses on your identity card, move it to Shadows, which is like already a good boon to make sure it's usable in your deck. But Borrow was like, no, we don't care if it's in your other houses. Just go ahead and make it Shadows so you can use it right now. Like it's so good. It's so good.
I'd say the last thing that people notice about this deck, or maybe the first, depending on who you are, is that it's currently rated at 78 SAS on decks of KeyForge, which means it's not a competitive deck.
Sure. Yeah, that would certainly be the general community context of looking at numbers and saying what could top 8 a Vault Tour. 78. Now, we've seen a couple 78. Shout out to Magic Duck, who I hung out at Philly with, made top 8 with a 70-something deck. But generally speaking, you're absolutely right. People will look at it, go 78, you're not going to do anything crazy with this, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
totally
not true at all. Yeah, the more sets come out, and the more things like Becky happen. Hopefully, the wider that range of what could possibly top 8 a Vault Tour becomes, right. So those are the things people notice. And so, June, what's unique? I know every deck is unique, right, quote unquote. But to you, June, from your seat as the pilot of Becky, what is unique about Becky?
It's really tough, because so many of the lessons I draw from Becky are applicable to other decks. But I suppose what's unique about Becky is that she bursts in all 3 houses, right?
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So you've got Logos bursts with like repeating Lethalogica or using Mutagenic Serum. You've got Shadows bursts by 1 last job stealing 5 amber, or you've got Starline's burst. Sometimes you're just jamming a few upgrades and you make 4 or 6 amber, and other times you play all those upgrades multiple times and you make 24 amber.
That's a lot of amber to make.
Yeah.
Being able to burst like crazy in every house is that is a very strong threat from a deck, right? You can do it in any house. If people are, if you've got, if they're trying to shenaniganize you, right, with playing around with what houses you can play. I mean, sometimes they'll still, shut a deck down, but being able to burst in any house, whatever your situation is, that's a strong position to be in.
Yeah, it's made stronger by the fact that it has I would say like nearing like a critical mass of efficiency, right? Like efficiency, like kind of improves your other cards, right? And if your other cards are also efficiency, you're reaching a point where like you're not just you don't just have speed, you have acceleration, right?
Yeah, sure. Sure, that speed multiplying itself, especially between the pure draw efficiency you have here in Becky, and then also the archiving, which lets you not just take cards and keep cards in your hand, but strategically stash cards away for whatever your big move is going to be later. And that's a pretty critical combination. Like you said, it starts to reach a critical mass.
Yes, because that combined with having burst in all three houses means that potentially you're sorting. I used to joke, and this is kind of still how I play Becky, that Becky is broken because she sorts her cards into 3 separate piles over the course of a game.
I love that. What are the 3 piles Becky sorts her cards into?
So when I first started playing, it was Shadows in the Archives,
Okay.
Star Alliance, and the hand or discard, and then Logos on the board.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Shadows in the Archive, that sounds like that's probably playing mainly towards that One Last Job play. If you're unfamiliar with One Last Job, rare Shadows action, it says purge each friendly Shadows creature, steal 1 amber for each creature purged this way. No alpha, no anything like that. You can just play cards exhausted, purge them. And then that's another kind of efficiency if Becky wants to start looping cards, right?
It also has a drop.
No shadows. Oh, and the One Last Job has a draw pip. Okay. That's pretty great. That's pretty great. So you've got the Logos on the board, so that looks like 3 Cronus. There's a Dinobot, a Dinobot. Wow. There's a Dinobot. Those are the kinds of things that in editing I'm like, oh, that might stay in. A Dinobot, a Munchling, a Quixo, and a Titan Engineer. It looks like there's 4 draw pips on spread out on all these creatures. You've got one on the Fission Bloom as well. And then your Star Alliance, you've got 3 draw pips, 3 draw pips as well. So you've talked about these piles that you kind of learned about how Becky wants to sort her cards. When you opened Becky and started playing with Becky, what did your early play experiences look like as you started to discover all these things Becky wanted to and could do?
So some may know that I opened Becky in a 4-person sealed pod. And so I played 3 games with Becky, and I think in those 3 games, I called Shadows maybe twice. And those were my early play experiences, was just like, oh, this Shadows house is terrible. I'm going to stow it away, you know?
Right.
That was the idea. And like for the most part, like half the cards are quite bad.
Sure.
But so those experiences were just archive as much as I can and try to only archive Shadows, or say Star Alliance cards I maybe didn't want to see, but often I would just keep them around.
Yeah.
And that proved to be quite powerful. Like even at that point, I was joking with my friends, like, oh, Becky's like 78 SAS, but like we'd be talking about like borrowing decks or potentially like doing like 6 deck formats like Hexad, and like which decks are we gonna bring, and they want to list everything in archetypes. I'm like, I don't know what Becky just wins games. Like that's the archetypes,
right?
And a lot of my early experiences were just trying to maximize efficiency and like sort out cards, get myself to 2 houses, and then just use that efficiency to close out a game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that sounds like it's one of Becky's win conditions, right? Archive an entire house and use the other 2 houses. What do Becky's kind of win conditions? What do Becky's win conditions look like? Like, how does Becky close out a game once you've used your efficiency? You've set yourself up. What's the winning move, or what are some of the winning moves that Becky can pull off?
There are several. Turns out. I think I've started to characterize Becky as having 4 or 5 different game plans.
Wow.
And those are mainly different archiving strategies.
Sure.
But like they tend to be better or worse for different finishing moves, as you would call them.
Yeah. I like to use as much like classic anime fight terminology in my KeyForge terminology as I can.
Yeah. So yeah, that first one, the classic, was just, you can stow away your Shadows forever, right, and then burst. I think it was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 amber and 5 or 6 amber stolen, which is a good burst. It's pretty decent burst.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah. So that tends to be a win condition. Just huge swing. Enough to, it's like almost a three key swing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that tends to be quite powerful. And if you time it right or wait certain things out, like types of amber control that might deal with 11 amber gained, uh, then it's almost, from an equal position, is not easy to deal with.
Right.
The second win condition I found was archiving cards away and then using well, honestly, just as the second thing I found was that I could reduce my deck down enough so that I could play Lethalogica almost every turn,
Mm.
um, which meant that with Vision Bloom, I'm gaining 4 amber every turn.
Oh, because that Lethalogica comes with a pip by default, and then is enhanced with one, and Fission
Mhm.
Bloom will the artifact that'll double those bonus pips for sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
and as we know from Treasure Map or Commune, like sometimes gain 4 is just good enough.
Right.
Plus, I get to do other stuff like archive with
Yep.
Autovac or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lethalogica draws a card in logos, right? Um, so that proved to be quite good. Just like a steady, powerful amber gain is another plan it has. Turns out mutagenic serum is really good with I think it's 4, 5, 6, 7 mutants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, 7 mutants is not a lot for mutants as far as we know in like mass mutations,
Right.
but reaping for 5 or 6 extra amber is certainly worth an artifact.
Yes. The artifact mutagenic serum and then SV3 Lander from Winds of Exchange are cards that I never see a whole lot of buzz around in online spaces, but then you get absolutely smashed by a mutant board that gets to be used 2 or 3 turns in a row to just reap out for check every turn. And it's the same thing with SV3 Lander. If you don't blow up that token board, they're just getting to use them in back-to-back turns. So yeah, those artifacts carry a lot of value, and I could see that being the case here for sure.
Yeah, really powerful if I'm allowed to keep the board.
Mm-hmm.
Even mutagenic serum for 2 creatures makes it, a 3 amber gain, which is
Right.
a good card. We like those.
No, that's a very good card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good card.
That's a very good. That's some very good math. Where there's other games that are a little more specific and quantitative with their card values, right? And you can talk about above rate, below rate, especially in things like Flesh and Blood. You can do a little bit of math and call a card good or bad, kind of off the cuff at least, just based on its math. But looking at the mutagenic serum math, where it comes with a pip, and if it gets you 2 more amber, that's 3 amber for 1 card. And with Omni, there's very little setup cost, right? Just getting mutants to stick to the board. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So in that plan, I tend to, it actually has affected all of my plans. I tend to archive my mutants last, just because it's like I get a little bit of extra ability, or when I'm like playing creatures, they are the ones I'll be able to house cheat with.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
One of those lessons that took a while to learn if it was worth it and to learn when it's worth it, right? I would say what is that? 2 plans? 3 plans. Or 3 win conditions. The 4th win condition is Lethalogica loops within the same turn.
Okay.
And so you can Vision Bloom the first Lethalogica, gain 4 amber. If you've got no deck, then or if you draw through your entire deck with Lethalogica,
right,
you play a draw pip, maybe draw it. If you have no deck, you definitely draw it.
Right.
Play another draw pip, draw it. Reap with Dinobot, draw it again.
Nice.
Often playing for 2, 3, 4 times in a row in the same turn, which is including Fission Bloom, generally about 6, 8 amber.
Wow.
Nice. Is a good Good win
Yeah.
condition. And you
Oh
can do it
yeah,
again.
for sure.
Yeah. I would say the fourth win condition I found was actually very similar. It is kind of the same thing. It was just I found perhaps a better way to do it. Using my creatures with drop hips like Titan Engineer, and Cronus with a with bouncing Death Quirk. So if you think Lethalogica, Cronus with 2 drop hips,
Right.
Titan Engineer, that's 4 drop hips on 3 cards,
Yeah.
and or 4 draws on 3 cards because Lethalogica draws.
Okay.
And then bouncing Death Quirk is your 4th card, so you just kind of can go infinite if you draw them in the right order.
Right.
As long as you draw your Cronus before the BDQ, you'll loop every time. So
that is very cool.
It's basically a 50-50 to loop again and again and again. But you always get to do it at least twice, which is great.
Wow.
I've generally I expect to do it about 4 or 5 times.
Sure. Sure.
That is where Becky was when I went to Philly. Now, I was also aware that there was the ability to rule of 6 in Star Alliance.
Okay.
However, it was kind of just a thing that happened when you had already won the game and all your cards were in your hand, right?
Sure. Bit of a win more move.
Yeah. Bit of a win more move. And also, like, at that point, I was still playing burst plans, still pushing for keys at the same pace as my opponent. Right? It happened maybe 1 in 20 games.
Sure.
Maybe less. And then Philly happened. I missed my round and things happened, and I didn't move on in there. But I went home and I did what I would always do to make myself feel better. I played Becky, and I was like, okay, she's still great. I played a game called Slay the Spire, which I have played a lot. I played a lot before. I probably have I don't know how many hours, but in Slay the Spire, Slay the Spire is a computer deck building roguelike game. So every run, which is maybe about like an hour of play, you are crafting a deck. Sometimes you get worse, sometimes you get better, sometimes improving your cards.
Right.
To get to the end. And over as you progress, you go through what are called ascensions and basically increase the difficulty. And at higher difficulties, you start to find that like thinning your deck and having like a true game plan for every card in your deck and like what a turn looks like starts to become necessary, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but planning for like what comes next, because you know that certain enemies pop up on certain floors, or you can tell what the boss is that you're going to fight, and you know what they're going to need. You're going to need to deal with them.
Right.
And I started to think about that in the context of Becky, and I said, okay, well, what if I start crafting my deck throughout the game to make it so that like I never actually want to pick up my archives. I'm not archiving my good cards ever, ideally. And that resulted in something I called the cantrip Exodia for 1. Which is just not truly that, but kind of just ridiculous. It's where every card in my deck draws a card, right? You reach a point where like you just do a ton of stuff every turn. That was really good. And so you could keep a couple cards in your deck that were like key against your opponent. Say your opponent has a bunch of artifacts, you keep Borrow in there, or you keep Lights Out in there.
Right.
And if you're keeping Lights Out, you probably keep the Look Over there, so you can steal a little bit on the same turns and deal a little bit more damage.
Yeah. But it sounds like the game plan with this kind of Slay the Spire move is to just archive everything, like you said, everything that's not drawing, so that every turn you're just always drawing and always hitting gas, no matter what.
Yeah, it's something a lot of people try to do in Slay the Spire is like go infinite, right?
Right.
I was like,
right.
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's fun. It also like the idea of, over the course of a game, and Slay the Spire, like a run, planning for what comes next and making your deck like work for that, right? And so it made me start thinking about Becky in a whole new way. Like really start thinking through my archives a lot stronger. I stopped archiving single house at that point. Started like archiving across houses a lot more.
Yeah.
Just because, I'm trying to archive my bad cards away.
It's like, and because I'm an avid Slay the Spire player
Okay.
as well, and you start with a very small deck. Becky is kind of an inverse, where you're starting with a 36 card deck, and the abundance of archives just lets you take cards out.
Yeah.
As you can choose what to take out as the game goes on for towards some end game plan, mostly based around draw, and like you said, keeping just whatever answer you want to hold on to. I love that.
Yeah. And I don't know why I'd never made that connection before. Like I have so many hours in Slay the Spire. I have so many hours in KeyForge.
Yeah.
I never thought like, oh, let's play like this. I guess I just have enough experience with Becky knowing that like there's a lot of different things you can do with her. Like let's see if we can do this one. And like first game, like I reached like the cantrip Exodia, which was I don't know. It was just seemed fun to like be able to draw a card with every card. And I realized that like going towards that plan also accelerated the deck enough that I could reduce my deck to the point where that Star Alliance Infinite, which I'll describe for our viewers who don't know,
Yeah.
listeners who don't know, is involves Armory Officer Nell, which is a Star Alliance creature which enhances with a draw pip. Anytime an upgrade enters play, the owner of Armory Officer Nell draws a card. And uses that with a series of upgrades. I believe 3 unique upgrades: blast shielding, access denied, and observe Max. There's also a Explorer Rover that doesn't give you amber, so I don't like that one. By playing all 3 of those on a creature, you gain 3 amber and draw 3 cards. Now, if you use a card like Hadron Collision, for example, then you potentially destroy that creature, sending it and all of its upgrades into your discard. And it has a draw pip, so you also draw a card. So it is self-sufficient as well. But then you're stuck, right? Like your upgrades in the discard, and so is your Hadron Collision. Except that I have another action in Star Alliance that also has a draw pip, which is Xeno Training. Xeno Training gains you an amber and allows you to capture 1 for each house of creature you control.
Yeah.
So in addition to being an action that draws me back in, does let me play on another vector while I'm doing this. So it allows me to control amber and gains me a bit more too while I loop this. So with that card, loop back into those cards I just discarded, all those upgrades. So the practical effect of which is that I can destroy 6 3-powered creatures, gain 24 amber, and capture between 6 and 18 amber.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And is this the move that while I was watching the Roseville Vault Tour online, I think, and I'm sure this has started with you, but calling this Exodia, was this was this specifically the Exodia move, or
This
is
is
one
it.
of the this is it? Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And what for our listeners who perhaps did not grow up watching Yu-Gi-Oh on their Saturday mornings, what is Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh the TV show and card game?
So Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh is a series of 5 cards. They're different pieces of Exodia, who's like some forbidden god, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They're terrible. They're just like, they don't do anything really, except if you play all 5 out on the same board, then you just win the game. It just says
Right.
you win the game, right? That's
Right,
it.
right. Like on the cards, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you do a bunch of damage. It just says you win.
Yeah.
Yep. And so looking at this as Exodia with like finding your 5 pieces and putting them all together, and then winning through mechanics and gaining amber and stuff. But that is a very fun comparison. A very fun comparison.
Yeah. So yeah, there's exactly 5 cards that are required for it,
Mm.
which are the Hadron Collision, Xeno Training, and those 3 upgrades. That also means you need to have 5 cards left in your deck to do it. This is me tipping my hat off for little people who don't like to do math.
Sure.
But having 5 cards in your deck allows you to do it, or discard.
Right.
Now there's another piece to it. Daughter
Mhm.
comes in help. I have a Daughter and Maverick into Star Alliance that comes with a damage pip and a draw pip, which means that in cases where I need, it can play into Rule of 6 because it is
Right.
also self-sufficient. So in a case where my opponent doesn't play any creatures because they know about Exodia, I can play the Daughter, and that becomes the targets of the Hadron Collision.
Right.
So I don't even need my enemy to have a board because that would actually be a problem otherwise, especially
Sure.
if people start knowing the deck and start playing around that.
Right.
It also comes with a damage pip, so that means 4 power creatures on my enemy's board are now also targets.
Right.
Potentially 5 power creatures if I get a couple loops in. That opens up a lot of possibilities as well.
That's fantastic. And I love that your inspiration for kind of finding the new loop, right, the new end game here came especially from Slay the Spire, because are you familiar with the it's the kind of 6 degrees of separation thing. Are you familiar of how Slay the Spire and KeyForge are connected through a couple of those?
No.
So Slay the Spire is created by one of the co-creators is Anthony Giovanetti, who goes by StimHacked online. StimHacked is both the name of his blog and I believe podcast for the card game Android Netrunner. Yes, Android Netrunner. So Anthony, a big content creator presence in the Android Netrunner community, made Slay the Spire, out of his love for card games. And of course, Android Netrunner, published by FFG, and that ended a few years before KeyForge came onto the scene through FFG. So there's a bit of a card game world connection there through StimHacked and Anthony.
And KeyForge and Netrunner both designed by Andrew Garfield.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Both designed by Richard Garfield. You can hardly throw a deck box across the room without hitting a card game designed by Richard Garfield, in at least its first or second iteration these days.
As far as I know, the Amazing Spider-Man actor has not made a card game. I apologize for saying Andrew Garfield.
You're not the first person to accidentally say Andrew Garfield. And the funny thing is, I used to have a Richard Garfield Google alert, and Andrew Garfield, the actor, his father is Richard Garfield, not the card game designer, simply the father of the actor.
Yeah.
So lots of fun crosswires there for Spider-Man and card games. So I love that. That is a fantastic learning process for Becky, even going back and thinking again about how to use that efficiency and what to aim towards. Like what is a ideal deck state look like and how to get there. So from your experiences, June, which turned into a Vault Tour win, practicing with Becky, and then taking another look at Becky even after Philadelphia before Roseville, how would you encourage other KeyForge players to look at their deck, maybe using a mindset or principles you used to learn on Becky, so that they can unlock that next level of a deck they're playing? Well, how would you encourage them to go about that?
Continue to reassess like your strengths, especially in things you have agency over, right? Things like when you hold cards, when you archive cards, what kind of cards you're archiving, um, the way you're handcrafting. These things are all kind of unique deck to deck.
Yeah.
And it just requires practice. Like I've talked about this, but specifically, I don't consider a deck playable until I've played it 50 times.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
which is like pale in comparison to how much I've played Becky, but like that's because she rules. But
Right.
you know, I don't think every deck is capable of the kind of like exacting like branching paths that Becky is. I think there are many decks that are. I think cards like Ultra Gravitron and now Strange Shells, Autoencoder, all do things like that. And you know, we see people playing those cards, pulling their archives. But you know, we've also seen people like ramp up and accelerate, like I said, using Ultra Gravitron to just play it over and over again. So there are certainly decks with the possibility of reaching game plans similar to Becky's, but I think just every deck, you know, if you play into enough different kinds of matchups, you start to just understand what you're supposed to do when you sit across the table from you start inspecting somebody's Archon card. And that's really it. Like, I don't practice too much against what people would call like, you know, Vault Tour winning decks, you know, the big ones, the ones that
Sure.
people dare not speak the name of for fear of facing them in round one.
Right.
I don't practice too much against those. you know, if I run into them, you know, I'll play them for sure. I'm not going to turn that out. But I find the most joy in facing new people on the Crucible and getting new experiences of totally different decks. Because that's the thing about KeyForge is you never really know what to expect, especially with decks that you haven't played. You know, like it's just seeing how much a deck that I have played has changed. Like certainly there's something unexpected that can happen across the table, and getting like a breadth of experiences you know, teaches you what to look out for. Like that's truly the best way, I think, is just to learn what your deck does and doesn't like. Learn at what point are you too far behind for catch up. Like for me, that was an incredibly important point. Like I talked about this with my friend Metaps, where I made Exodia, but like that didn't mean I could like put the deck down and then go to Roseville and win.
Right.
Because having a powerful tool, having a secret weapon, is actually worse if you don't know when to use it.
Wow.
I think. Because if you're just trying to do the crazy long game plan every time, you'll get stuck. You want to get there. It's just, it takes practice to learn how much tempo you need and, you know, to assess. So I find myself assessing with Becky every game, every turn. Like, can I hold my archives? Can I ever reach like the 5 cards in hand and discard by the end of this game? And if not, then I have to start reassessing how I'm archiving, right? And I think there are similar lessons you can learn with your deck's game plan and how far behind you are on tempo. And those are things you can best learn by practice and just a breadth of experience.
Amazing. I loved what you started off with there and then expounded upon with the practicing a lot. Continue to assess your strengths, especially the ones you have agency over, right? That is, that speaks to some critical thinking and like reflection time on saying, what did this deck do? What did it not do? How did my choices affect it? Because one of the biggest lessons for me as I grew as a player was, instead of saying, oh, I just didn't get the cards I needed, that's why I lost, I moved on from that. I thought that way for a while, and I moved on from that and said, well, what if I had held a card here? Or what if I hadn't held that card because I was just tempted by this 2-card combo I knew was in there, which isn't even a secret weapon and was still ruining my games, right? Because I didn't know how to even use a 2-card combo.
Exactly.
And how can you say, okay, was this truly a loss where it wasn't winnable? Maybe it was sealed, especially it just wasn't winnable. But having that be a thought you only rest on and arrive to, that it wasn't winnable, once you have thoroughly pressure tested everything you had agency over.
Yeah.
Right? Everything you had agency over. And that's how you're going to get to that next level. And one of my absolute favorite things about KeyForge is that so many of my decks, if not most of my decks, perhaps, right? I am not good enough either at KeyForge or that deck specifically to play it to its maximum potential yet, right? And that is the most exciting thing. I purchased a deck on the secondary market and was talking with an acquaintance about it, and they said, oh, I saw that deck and I didn't buy it because it's too complicated, the skill ceiling's too high. And I went, that's why I purchased it, because every time I pick up this deck, I know I can learn something and get better. And it's going to be such a complicated decision tree that, like, I have not technically infinite, but a almost unknowably vast amount of decisions I can make with this deck. It's a Dark Tidings deck with a whole lot of wacky archive and recursion and Evil Twin Witch of the Dawn and Double Forgive or Forget. So just
so many branching paths. Yeah.
An insane amount of branching paths just based on those 4 cards in the deck, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. Continue to assess your strengths, especially the ones you have a lot of agency over. And then having a secret weapon. Having a secret weapon is going to be a bad thing if you don't know how to use it, because you're just going to be distracted by the fact you have a secret weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like what you said about being interested in the deck because it can teach you things. Yeah. And I think that was something I felt in KeyForge really early. I identified in the first set that Mars was my first house in that set, my favorite house in that set.
Nice.
And I had played good Mars, and I couldn't really identify what it was. I mean, we're all new to the game. What it was that made those pods tick. And so I started buying decks, and I just things that looked interesting.
Yeah.
And I treated each one as, another lesson until I ended up on, my first KeyForge love, Steadfast Stone Pilot, which is a deck that goes crazy with Brainstem Antenna and John Smith and just reaps for 18. It's great.
Right. Love it. Love it.
And I think, starting to treat decks as things that not only make you better at playing them, but better at playing KeyForge, has a lot of value. I think Becky has made me better at KeyForge, not just Becky.
Wow. And now you and Becky have won a Vault Tour together. Vault Tour champions, June and Becky.
Yeah. Maybe the last thing I would say is that the decks that you buy and think are like, that look crazy, look incredible, and then you play them and they're wonky and janky, and you said, oh, it's actually not as good as I thought. Play those decks again, please. For the love of God, play those decks again. Those are the decks that will teach you. Those are the decks that have lessons for you. Those are the decks that are way better than you're giving them credit for. There's this deck I am really interested in. I probably won't end up with it, but it's an autoencoder deck with a ton of drop hips everywhere. But its only forms of Amber control are 2 Anthonys.
Wow. Talk about weird.
Where those Anthonys are, and like specifically destroying your own Anthony so that you can refresh it and get to the next one when you need to. It's so strange and important. The first time I played the deck, I was like, oh, I just can't interact with my opponent most times. But you start to learn, like, oh, how am I But like, what do I want my archives? How do I manage these two tools I have
Right.
once I have like incredible control over my deck?
Yeah. That I think that's such a picture of having a deck that's, probably pretty good, or you see some promise in it, or it's just exciting, and then you go, oh, this is weird and it didn't work, so it's now not good. But like you said, I didn't even think about it, when to blow up your own Anthony, which if you're unfamiliar, just 6-power Star Alliance creature that captures all your opponent's amber when it's played and then slowly drips it back to your opponent. And like knowing when to blow it up so you could cycle it later. I hadn't even, as you said, 2 Anthony's, I'm like, oh yeah, that's not a lot, but you'd have to know when to blow it up so that you could then go get it back later. And that takes such just foresight and just learning what do I need later in the game, and how do I prep for that now?
Yeah,
Right?
and I think foresight is something, foresight is thought becomes foresight becomes instinct, just keep training, keep practicing, and like it'll take you less time to make those decisions. I find myself, again, like those practice games help me to get through Swiss so I could get to the finals, and that's where I had infinite time and I could play my best.
Right.
But learning how to manage your time comes with practice, for sure. There are a lot of decks I would love to play in tournaments, but I think are too slow. But that's because I haven't practiced them enough.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. June, well, thank you so much for coming on KPR. Really appreciate your time and your willingness to dive into Becky and everything Becky has taught you. I think that was one of my favorite things to talk with you about, just talking about how a deck can teach us more about the deck and KeyForge, and then you go to other decks. I'm feeling a little inspired myself to go back to. I opened a very good Winds of Exchange deck with Prospector and some other stuff that I played it, and it was exactly what you said. I'm like, this is weird, this is janky, it doesn't exactly have these tools, and I had the thought, but you repeated it and convinced me. I'm like, no, I just need to practice that deck more, because there's probably more to unlock. There's probably more to unlock with that thing.
Probably every puzzling trinket deck in the world.
Oh my gosh.
Also,
yes.
Yeah.
That the 3 or 4 decisions that you could make every time you play a pip gets pretty crazy. Just the variety of things you can do. Awesome. June, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see you at Worlds, and I'm sure all of our listeners will be rooting for you at Worlds with that Archon invite that you've got in just a few short months. Gosh, we're just over, I think it's 2.5 months away from KeyForge's first World Championship, and that is super exciting, and I am brilliantly happy that you have a spot in that World Championship, and can't wait to see how you do.
Well, I hope to put on a show at least. Let's have fun there,
I'm sure you will.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us today here on KeyForge Public Radio, dear listener. Thank you so much to everybody who supports us on Patreon, especially our Airwave Advocate level supporters like Paul Roadrunner. Don't forget to check out the KeyForge Public Radio website for everything KeyForge and KeyForge Public Radio. We've got the blog, episodes, the merch store, everything like that. And like your radio dial, may your KeyForge skills always be well tuned. Visit KeyForgePublicRadio.com to find all of our episodes, transcripts, blog posts, the KPR store, and more. KeyForge Public Radio is made possible with support from listeners just like you who believe in this game and this show. When you join the Patreon, you receive access to votes on content, sneak peeks, early knowledge of interviews, access to the Discord, and other benefits. So come on down, I'd be honored if you joined us. Follow KPR on any social media platform you frequent. Just search for KeyForge Public Radio, and we're probably there. This show is produced by Rooster High Productions, which is me. And remember, dear listener, the most important part of KeyForge is the person across the table.